Let's assume that we've converted our fictitious company, Totally Nuts, into a series of profit or investment centers. We're now well on our way toward decentralizing our firm, treating each organizational unit as practically an independent business. Now, the key to successful decentralization is allowing the people running each responsibility center the authority to make decisions for themselves within a reporting structure that encourages them to do what's in the overall organization's interest. And one of our most useful tools in creating this structure is the transfer price. The transfer price allows us to view our organization as a complete supply chain. So imagine that you truly did have separate businesses bringing nuts from the farmer to the consumer. You'd have one company that actually goes to the farmer, gets the nuts, and sorts the good from the bad. And you'd have another company that buys those sorted nuts and then roasts them. And you might have another company then that would coat them with spice or candy or chocolate and sell them to another company, which is the retailer. Well, the fact that all of our divisions within Totally Nuts are part of a single organization doesn't change a whole lot. We still have a supply chain. It's just inside the organization. Now, this does create some differences. It's easier for 3 units in one organization to share resources and to arrange their prices, negotiate them in a more cooperative fashion. After all, there isn't real money associated with the transfer price. The transfer price is really capturing not the transfer of cash, as in a usual transaction, but the transfer of performance measures over which the responsibility centers are held responsible and accountable. But there is one big similarity between internal and external supply chains that does not change: the notion of supply chain surplus. In my course on capacity and surplus, we discussed the difference between margin and surplus. Margin is just another word for profit. It's the excess of revenue over costs. But surplus is the excess of value over costs. You can think of the surplus with a single buyer and seller as really as being the value of the output to the buyer minus the cost of production to the seller. Each party's margin reflects not just the total amount of surplus that is created, but the portion of surplus that they were able to extract and call their own. So if it costs the seller $4 to create something that's worth $10 to the buyer, the surplus is $6. But at a price of $4.01, the seller only gets a penny margin and the buyer gets $5.99. At a price of $9.99, it goes the other way. The seller is getting all the margin but that 1 penny. We can extend this analysis to an entire supply chain. Our nuts are worth $10 a bag to a consumer, but the costs of $4 are spread across all of the companies in the chain. Again, the total surplus, in this case, the supply chain surplus, is $6, and it could be split in any number of ways across the separate companies and the consumer. Now let's think about the supply chain surplus in our internal supply chain. The value of the output to coating is what they can sell it for to a consumer. Let's just assume that's $9. So we have $5 of surplus to split among our 3 departments because the total cost across the departments is $4. Now, what prices are we going to set as the nuts go from receiving to roasting and from roasting to coating? Well, that is going to depend on the decisions that we want to give each department manager the authority to make. Because remember, the key to successful decentralization is to create a reporting structure that encourages the manager in each department to do what is in the overall organization's interest. So our transfer price needs to be matched to the needs of the organization. Well, if the goal of our organization is to create as much surplus as possible and capture the biggest share of that surplus we can use transfer prices to do exactly that. Okay? After all, when we set up a system of transfer prices for our organization, we're essentially creating a free market within the firm. And one of the most important functions of a free market is to encourage every economic actor to seek out opportunities to create and capture value.